Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So today's video is about doing some suspension tuning on the Litehawk Blast, the Wltoys L959, which is this one, and the Wltoys L202. Now all three buggies are exactly the same with the exception the L202 actually has a brushless motor and ESC in it. So anyways, I've been looking for a solution better than zip ties for my rear suspension. I ended up taking springs out of another RC that were actually longer, same diameter, but they were way too stiff. So I thought, well, what else am I going to do? I don't want the zip ties because they look a little too rednecky and cheap. So anyway, I have a whack load of spare parts for my HSP Ghost thanks to buying the Litehawk igniter a little while back. And they have suspension clips in them because you can't buy suspension clips for this machine or the Blast or the L202. So I thought, well, the suspension's pretty skinny on that HSP and on the igniter, same parts, and I wasn't sure if the clips were going to go on without snapping, and I thought, well, you know what, I can buy spare clips, so if I break it, I break it. So I thought I'd try it, and even though these are a little bit thicker, they popped right on just fine without any hassle. So I thought, okay, let's try one and see what kind of difference it gives us for stiffening up the rear end. And it really wasn't a huge improvement. So then we put a second one on here. And so now we've got a much stiffer rear end, which is really nice, and still using the stock springs. And now it's not so easy to bottom out that back end of that chassis. So this is actually going to roll over the pavement outside a lot nicer, because I have this one annoying bump in the roadway that would always slap the chassis on this thing because it being such a very sloppy rear end, you know. So now this is just a bit stiffer. Now with stiffening it up, you do pay a price. You end up losing traction on different surfaces. And in this case, with these particular tires, you can lose traction in all surfaces. So you don't have a ton of traction as it is with these tires, so you're going to have a little bit less. So you're going to want to be a little easier on the throttle. Now, the next mod that's very ideal mod to do to this, which is going to be done, is I'm going to be ordering in the actual steel axles that hold your rims on from the Litehawk Brute or even the L959 because of the exact same machine. But I'm going to order in those axles and the rear tires. And this is going to give me a much larger footprint of a tire, and much wider, and of course lots of traction. And it's, being that they're larger tire, it's going to lift my rear end up, which is also going to change the center of gravity on this thing, and it won't be so low slungy in the rear, and it's going to give me that much more access to suspension travel. So I shouldn't bottom out at all after that. But I'm also going to get a nicer, meaner looking machine. I'm leaving my front tires alone. So I also boosted up the front suspension because it's very soft. And I boosted them up with one clip each. Okay, so this is going to stiffen things up even more for the front end. So I still have some good movement here in the suspension, you know, so by the time you get that, you know, 2.6 ounce battery in there, you know, and start running this thing, it's going to perform much better speed wise, because with your rear ends, it's already got a lot of weight towards it because it's a low slung machine as it is, and it does tend to sit back in the rear on an angle. Having it being able to stay stiff or stiffer is going to help not create so much drag when you hit that throttle. It's not going to be able to suck it down so easily, you know, which has an advantage for traction, but disadvantage for, you know, being such a low machine to the ground. It's going to cause that slapping or chassis drag, which now we're pretty much avoiding that almost altogether, you know. So I think this should be a good combination once I get those tires and new axles put in, and then I can tune it from there. I may have to take out one clip from each side, but at least better that than, you know, still putting up with a low traction type vehicle. I mean, this thing looks cool the way it is, But I mean, the front tires are actually taller than the rears, which is pretty sick, you know. They should have had something to do with some height difference here to even things out, but yeah, whatever. So anyway, that's one of the tunings you can do. Now, to get your hands on these clips, you can buy them from Litehawk. Just go to the Litehawk Igniter parts page. You'll find the clips are there, and they're not very expensive, so grab a couple of packs, and this way it gives you, you know, a lot of extras. The other place is HeliPal. You can get the parts as well from them. They carry the HSP Ghost and Night parts. The Litehawk Igniter is actually the HSP Night, but anyway, it doesn't matter. That's where you're going to get those clips, is those two places for sure. And you'll be able to still use the stock springs, but give it a bit more stiffness, but you don't want too much stiffness. The springs I put on here were really overkill, you know, and the performance was just, it was terrible. So this should actually give me a little bit better performance, and not so terrible as having the really stiff springs in, and at least have more tunability this way too, which is nice. And then of course, like I said, I get those big tires on the back end of this thing, and it should perform nice in pretty much any and all terrains, you know. And I'll want to keep these spacers in the front shocks to keep them fairly stiff, especially for jumping purposes, you know. I mean, right now as it is, I mean, that doesn't even move, you know, when you do that. So, but when you jump, you got the entire weight of that car coming down. You don't want to scrape it on the pavement or scrape it on the dirt and gravel, you know, when you're jumping, because it tears things apart, right? So you want to have stiff but not too stiff, and still have traction and performance. So a little tip for you on that one. This is also going to be getting a brushless upgrade kit as well. I did find out from the company that if you go for the brushless motor and receiver ESC unit, you do not have to buy a new transmitter. You will be able to use the same transmitter as always. Now, this should also stick well for the Litehawk Blast and the Litehawk Brute, because I was able, with no hassle, to bind my Litehawk Brute radio to this machine with its receiver. So they are working within the same frequency ranges on these receivers, which means they're going to be doing the same thing on the brushless stuff. So you'll be able to upgrade to a brushless ESC and receiver combo and a brushless motor, and go brushless with this. Start running your LiPo batteries. I'm already running a LiPo battery in this now. It's just a 2-cell 1500 milliamp pack, and I've still got the stock lithium ion pack for it. But also I'll be able to run a little bit more powerful LiPo when I go to that brushless ESC combo unit too. But I'll also get up to over 60 kilometers an hour with the brushless upgrade, which is going to be a big, huge benefit. But anyways, guys, if you have any other questions, whatever, you know the usual thing, leave your comments. I'll do the best I can to answer them. And till then, we'll see you in the next video.